Welcome to the BACC Sunday livestream with your host, Russ Yule. Today, we will have a special episode. It's our video podcast Sunday. Our service will consist of a brief message with scriptures and visuals. Then you'll have time afterwards to connect and discuss the message with your friends. You can choose to meet in person, but safe and socially distant, meet virtually, or do a combination of both. Either way, today's goal is to create transformative fellowship opportunities. Share with us what you're doing by using the hashtag #PostPodTalk. Visit bacc.cc/live for service resources and downloadable PDFs of simple notes and doodle notes so you can make sure to jot down points, scriptures, and thoughts that will help facilitate conversations later. If you want to get connected with people in your area, text BACC to 31996 and someone will reach out to you. If you want to receive consistent spiritual content in your inbox, text Get Deep to 31996. Speaking of fellowship opportunities, our socially distant drive-in movie night has been postponed to Saturday, September 12th due to the current poor air quality in California. Visit bacc.cc/drive-in for the latest information. Make sure to take a moment to like the video today. When you like it, you can help us grow to reach more people. And while you're at it, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Today's service will be a little different. We're giving you a shorter lesson focused on helping you have great conversations with your friends and family. To help you get the most out of your post-service discussion, head over to deepspirituality.net/stress to download a free stress test kit. This fun handbook will help guide your talk by identifying the areas in your life that are causing you the most anxiety. Now let's get going with our video podcast Sunday.
Well, it's a little different today because we're all kind of hanging out here in podcast world, and that's a world I really enjoy. My name is Russ Yule, as the intro said, and podcasts are something me and our team really like. And if you go to Deep Spirituality, you can find a bunch of the podcasts we've done, which we've kind of not been working on that because of the fact that we've been doing the live stream, which has taken a lot of time, but we're going to be launching those again on many different levels beginning in September. And so you can look out for that. Podcasts are different because you're looking at the screen and you're either seeing a slide or you're seeing something. The theme for today is fearless, choose audacity instead of anxiety. I'm used to podcasts being a conversation, but today it won't be a conversation. It'll be kind of a monologue, which I don't like as much. They promised it would be short. I never like it when they put the thing at the beginning that says it's going to be short, because what if it isn't short and then I'm not making it that short and it sounds like I didn't do the right thing. But we're going to do what we need to do because I think the most important thing in the middle of everything is to be spiritual. Now, I'm going to tell you something funny. At least I think it's funny. All right. So my wife and I, Gail, we were talking, and I came in and I came in to the house and I said, I was talking to a family friend of ours, really close to my sister, a friend of mine in Michigan, back in Michigan, and he was checking on me because of all the fires that are going on here. And we're in a really challenging time, very stressful. And I texted him back. I said, I feel like I'm in the days of Pharaoh in the Old Testament with the plagues. And I said, it's like we have the plagues. Do you ever feel that way? You ever think about that? Now, you may not read the Bible much, but you probably know about Charlton Heston and the Ten Commandments, so you're probably a plague aficionado or expert. And of course, we've got some plagues going on. So my wife, Gail, did all the work, but I'm going to just flat steal it here at the beginning just so it can be enjoyable. And again, if you're watching your clock on this one, you might as well buy 2 Cinnabons because I don't know that it's going to be short. We'll see. Does anyone else think it feels like this lately? These plagues are described in the book of Exodus. This is my wife writing this. She wrote this down. Water turned into blood, frogs, lice, gnats, diseased livestock, boils, hail, locusts, darkness for 3 days, killing of firstborn sons. That's a list of 10. There's 7 plagues technically, but you can see there's some detail here. And so you got a bunch of junk going on right there with the plagues. All right, but look at 2020. And this is her list, all right? I'm just flat stealing it. I'm stealing it and making it my own. Isn't that the best? When your wife is great, you can sort of rise up on her greatness. Coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic, that's number 1. Wildfires in California, number 2. Wild thunderstorms, number 3. Killer bees, number 4. Ongoing racial injustice and riots, which is terrible, number 5. 6, the heat wave. Can it get any hotter? I mean, hot heat and smoke. I mean, what is this? Number 7, water drought. Can you remember the last time we had rain? June confirmed UFO sighting. Shout out to my wife on that one because I don't even know if I knew that happened. Number 9, August hurricane and earthquake in the same state in the same week, North Carolina, and that was not the Tar Heels playing. And finally, number 10, a fire tornado. What in the world? Yes, I think we can officially say that we are in rare spiritual air and there's reasons to be afraid. And so that's why we're talking about fearless. Choose audacity instead of anxiety. You like that? When I was growing up, I don't remember how old I was because I didn't bother to look. Because the thing I like about podcasts, actually podcasts, you kind of ramble on and on and on. I don't know how many of you listen to them. You may stop listening now going, this is terrible. I don't know. This is what a podcast is all about. Usually I have someone who talks to me, right? And I say this and then they interrupt me and go, what? Fire tornado? And so, you get two people talking, but I'm not really good at that kind of ventriloquism or talk to self. But there was a movie I watched when I was young called High Anxiety. And I remember I went to see it, Mel Brooks, and it's all about anxiety. I didn't enjoy the movie that much, but it did make me more anxious. Anxiety is a major problem right now for every one of us. It manifests itself in different ways. And so we're going to jump on in and talk about it. Now, you're asking the question, what are we going to do after? Why are we doing a podcast Sunday? Well, we're doing a podcast Sunday for a few reasons. This one is one where you're going to do the work. Because the thing that makes you grow is not listening to someone. It's you engaging with your life and figuring your life out. And I hope in God that we can learn some things that we can have conversations about. And so let's go to the first idea, not really point, but the first idea to discuss with your friends today. The question, who do you serve? Now we're going to go to the Old Testament on this, Daniel 3, and I'm going to move around a little bit because it's a long story. It's a great book to read, Daniel. I would read it if I were you soon, but especially if you're working a job right now and taking care of your kids and you just feel like let's just read this. In Daniel 3:16, it says, Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to defend our actions in this matter. We are ready for the test. Okay, so what's going on right here is that the long and short of the story is these guys are Israelites, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Among the big three, they're the three, but the big four includes Daniel, and he is the man. But these guys have come through some difficulty already, and they've been hired to work for the king, and they're doing a great job, and they're living a great life, and everything is going right. And then some people get down on them and say, we don't like the fact that you're Jewish, basically, and that you worship a God that's not our God. And our king has said you need to worship him. So bottom line, they're put in a position where they're being told you have to worship the king instead of God. And so they're being called to account and told, look, some things are going to happen to you that are pretty terrible if you don't do this. Now you have to understand historically, if you go back to Greece, if you go back to Rome, if you go back to a variety of different ancient civilizations, the idea of worshiping a king is not outlandish. That happened. And the idea of losing your life for not doing it is real. And that's beyond Christianity. So let's just make sure that we don't act like the things happening in the Old Testament are not really real or true. Let's keep going. Verse 17. If you throw us into the blazing furnace, then the God we serve is able to rescue us from a furnace of blazing fire and release us from your power, your majesty. And so they had incredible faith. But here's the kicker to the faith. They say, if you throw us into this furnace where you burn people up, our God will rescue us. But look at verse 18. But even if he does not, O king, you can be sure that we still will not serve your gods and we will not worship the golden statue you erected. Here's the bottom line. They said whether God rescues us or not, he's still God. And therefore, that's who we're going to serve. First thing to understand for all of us about life, serving God simplifies the complexity of life. And when we simplify the complexity of life, we reduce the anxiety in our life. I'm coming at this from a spiritual point of view, not a psychological point of view. There are obvious psychological ramifications. Serving God simplifies the complexity. So they had a complex situation. Worship the king, worship God, lose their jobs, lose their life. Lots going on right here. But what they do is they simplify this by saying, look, it's not complicated. We worship God, we serve God. He either rescues us or he doesn't. But whether he does or he doesn't, that's who we're going to serve. True Christians, true people of God are the most laser-focused people you will ever meet. Now, I'm guilty of not being that. And one of the things I have to do is work on that. Now, let's go to the furnace. What is my life temperature? Now, I'm going to throw some graphics at you today, and these graphics will be available for you to get a hold of to even be able to use in your discussions today. The furnace. What is my life temperature? Daniel 3:19. So, remember they said, whether he rescues us or not, throw us in the fire, we are good to go for the test. At this, Nebuchadnezzar flew into such a rage at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that onlookers saw his face twisted and distorted. Now, that's some serious anger. with fury burning in his eyes. That's serious anger. He ordered the furnace heated up 7 times hotter than usual. So Nebuchadnezzar is burning people up in this furnace. And then all of a sudden, what he decides to do is he says, crank up the heat, man. Turn up the heat. Do you think that's what's happening to us right now? That the heat's been cranked up? You know, we were already feeling heated up by the coronavirus. But then if we go through Gail's list of the the new plagues of the 21st century, it's getting heated up 7 times hotter. In verse 20. He commanded some of his strongest soldiers to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego so they could be thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. So here's the thing we're going to do. The fire is heated up 7 times hotter. What heats up our life? Now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to tell you something before I show it to you. I'm going to assign to critical areas of our life 12 degrees. That means everything we're involved in is going to have 12 degrees. We're going to act like this is a body temperature, and we're going to call it our life temperature. You get that? You have a body temperature, but we're going to say you also have a life temperature. And in that life temperature, everything you invest yourself in has 12 degrees of investment. Take a look, okay? So, spirituality. If you try to be a spiritual person, have some core principles, have something you believe in, even if it's not God, your temperature is going to go up 12 degrees. Now, that's a good thing because if it's 0 degrees, you're dead. The only way to have it 0 degrees is dead. You know, you want to be dead. So you just, spirituality, 12 degrees. Marital status, you add 12 degrees. Your job, work, add 12 degrees. School, add 12 degrees. Obviously, if you go to work in school, you got a little something going on there, you get both. But let's keep going. Then, taking your life temperature, top 8, you got your health, all right? A lot of young people go, my health doesn't matter. Yeah, but if you get coronavirus and you end up in the hospital and you can't breathe and you're on a ventilator, suddenly your health does matter, and not having health insurance does matter, because health matters to everybody. We just don't always know it. Finances, you add another 12 degrees. Caretaking, taking care of parents, taking care of, if you're like me and our family, we have special needs in our home. So you take care of your siblings, taking care of extended family members, taking care of friends, caretaking if you're doing that. And then aging. I added that one to the list because a lot of us are experiencing aging. Why does my knee hurt? I have no idea because I moved it. That's what aging is all about. And so you got that going on. All right. So you get that. So you take your life temperature by looking and saying, okay, I've got these things in my life and they're all adding temperatures to my life in temperature degrees. Now, the important thing to understand is, you start to get there. We got you there at about 98.6 with all those 8. All right. Doesn't mean they all stay at 12 degrees only. They can get higher, but let's just, for the sake of it, stick with 12 degrees. You okay out there? 12 degrees for each of the things that you're involved in doing in your life. Now, obviously, for some of you, you're living off your parents, so you don't have a financial 12 degrees, and so your temperature is dropping lower. We'll cover that later. All right. The heat. How do you handle crisis and change? Okay, you got your 8 things going on. You doing all right out there? You can sip on a Cinnabon. You could actually share it if you want. People often say sharing is caring, but what happens if you don't care? You eat the whole Cinnabon and you ask for forgiveness later. But the heat, how do you handle crisis and change? Let's look here in Daniel 3. So the Jews were taken, tied up so quickly that they were still wearing the clothes they had on when they arrived, pants, cloaks, hats, and all. Then they were picked up and thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. The furnace was so hot and the king's command carried out so quickly without any precautions that the soldiers who took Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up to the furnace were themselves killed by the heat of the raging fire. I mean, that's some serious fire, and this is collateral damage. How would you like to be the soldiers? You didn't do anything wrong, but you end up dying before these guys die. You're supposed to die anyway. We're talking about hot, 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 hot. And guess what? You got your 8 areas that you're focused on. Those are all going well till you hit crisis and change. How do you handle crisis and change? Look at what crisis and change do. Yep, they take you up over that nice 98.6 degree temperature and you start jumping up over 100. And the next thing you know, you're at 120. Good things don't happen when your temperature goes to 120. I think you can probably trust me on that. So when you're taking your life temperature, if you're doing too much, it's usually not because of the core things you're doing in your life, the 8. It's because change happens and crisis happens. Let me ask a question. Have you experienced some change? Have you experienced some crises? Guess what we're going to make available to you on the Deep Spirituality site. There's a study, and based on the study, they have a stress test that you can take. And that stress test is, I believe it's the home stress test, maybe a couple of other people who've worked on it. I don't remember. We're all going to give you some online versions you can take and a simplified version you can take just to get an idea of your stress or your life change and life crisis experience. Guess what's on that stress test? Because I took it. a change in church activities. That's right. I couldn't even believe that. When you read that list, you're going to go, I did, you're going to go, holy cow. The change in crises we're going through has increased stress on almost every level and area of our lives. So what we're talking about here is taking your life temperature. So let's say you're going to get together in a little bit with your group. What you're going to do is you're going to sit down with your group, maybe take a test, look at these graphics, and you're going to say, you know what? My life was going fine until the change or crises. Or, you know what? I was overinvested in some of those 8 areas. I was putting more than 12 degrees in. I'm out of balance. You should be able to work with that. Be good thing to work on. So let's go with their choice. Which dominates our life when we go through crisis, when we go through change, when we're living, spirituality or anxiety? And the 3 Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, tied and bound, fell into the furnace of blazing fire. Nebuchadnezzar could hardly believe his eyes. Shocked, the king jumped up and asked his advisors, didn't we tie up and throw 3 men into the heart of the fire? Yes, O king. Then why do I see 4 men, completely unbound, walking around in the middle of the fire? I think you can guess, when you're spiritual, you can walk through the fire. When you got anxiety, you become part of the fire. They don't appear to be hurt at all. And the 4th, he appears to be like a son of the gods. Boy, we could talk a long time about that. But what we're really looking at here is the choice they made to focus on spirituality resulted in them not being hurt by the crises and by the change and by the temperature of their life. Now, let's take a look here at all of these gauges for health. Now, I know you're a little overwhelmed right now because you're going, wow, that's like 8 different things. And that's another one on the side. That's your basic 98.6. Now, how's your temperature going? How are you doing? Are you up at 120 because you're operating, you got spirituality, marital status, work, school, health, finances, caretaking, aging, change, crises? Or maybe you're down at 60 because you only have spirituality, marital status, work, school, and health, and you're ignoring your finances, you're not taking care of anybody, you're not getting older, and you're ignoring the change in crisis and just living on your couch playing video games all day. That's one way, but you're down at 60. That's not good either. You say, well, why not? Well, see, when you choose spirituality over anxiety, you end up making a choice where you're living in a healthy way. What can happen to us when we don't make the right choices, we end up living with a spiritual fever, meaning that our temperature in life has gone so high that it's causing damage to us. When you're not invested in enough people, you end up living with spiritual shiver. You need radical action to prevent the permanent cold damage that can happen. You have to reduce or increase your degree of investment if you have a fever. You have to increase your degree of investment if you don't have the right body temperature. Now, I know that seems complicated, but guess what? You're all hanging out and you can help each other understand it. Their character, which dominates, integrity or anxiety? In verse 26, and I've trimmed this a little bit for us, you can go back and read the whole thing. Nebuchadnezzar moved as close to the door of the furnace as he dared without being scorched. He shouted, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, come out right now, come here. So the 3 men made their way out of the fiery furnace. See, the key to spirituality is to come out of the furnace in the fires of life without being scorched. The officers, prefects, governors, and king's advisors moved closer to see what had happened to these men. They, too, could hardly believe their eyes. The fire had done nothing to harm these men. Integrity is when you stick with your core beliefs, what's integral to your life. You don't become distracted, and therefore you don't get disrupted, and therefore you don't become derailed. That's it. When you have integrity and you choose that over anxiety, instead of sitting around trying to do everything or sitting around and not doing enough, you have integrity and say, I'm going to stick to my core 8, or I'm going to stick to my core 4. And if I don't have the 8, I'm going to invest more in the 4. I'm going to do more to keep my temperature at 98.6, or I'm going to do less to keep my temperature from going over 103 to 120. Character is what integrity is about. It's not just about doing the right thing. It's about focusing on the right things. We're all going to make mistakes, but what gets us through the fire is when we say, I'm not going to get distracted by what someone thinks I ought to do. I'm not going to get distracted by what my emotions tell me I need to do. I'm going to stick with the integrity of what I know I ought to do. And I'm not going to let myself get into a bad situation. And so here's how I break it down for us. We've got spiritual hypothermia, spiritual hyperthermia, and spiritual homeostasis. Now, The bottom line with hypothermia is that means you've gotten too cold in your temperature. In spiritual hyperthermia, you've overheated. In spiritual homeostasis, you've got the right balance. You got that, for our terminology, 98.6. So where are you at? If you have spiritual hypothermia, you're doing less and less, and as a result, growing colder because you're losing faith faster than you can produce it. In spiritual hyperthermia, you're doing too much. You're burning out as the outside factors of your life are overwhelming. They're overwhelming you. You may have great faith, but you're doing so much that you're getting overwhelmed, in particular by the crises and the changes in your life, and they're burning up your faith. You're using it too much, maybe doing too much for other people. And spiritual homeostasis is where we want to get. When we go through crisis and change like we are now, we should allow the crisis and change to inspire us to reprioritize and reinvent our lives. Reprioritize and reinvent our lives. Now, when we do that, we want to look at Matthew chapter 6 about seeking first the kingdom and God's righteousness. It doesn't mean just going off and being selfish, because honestly, it's the spiritual hypothermia people who get cold, who get selfish. They start doing less and less and less, but what they do is they do so little that they end up not even barely having a pulse. And so it's important that we identify, where am I at today? Hypothermia, hyperthermia, or homeostasis. And what we need to be doing to help each other is getting to spiritual homeostasis. You doing all right out there? I know you are. You're really smart people. I know that because I know you. The impact. Which dominates our life, audacity or anxiety? See, you can't get to audacity unless you're focused on all those things we've been mentioning. We'll cover them again so you know. Look what happens with their impact. They make an impact on King Nebuchadnezzar. Remember, the same king who wanted them to worship him as God changes his tune, and let's look at why. In Daniel 3:28, praise is certainly due the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego today. He sent his heavenly representative and rescued his servants who put their trust in him. They had, there it is, the audacity to disobey the king's order and surrendered their bodies to the fire rather than serve and worship any god other than their own God. How about that? How about that? The audacity to say, you know what? We're going to bet on God. We're not going to bet on you. We're going to live fearlessly instead of full of anxiety. There are a lot of us who think the solution to anxiety is somewhere in some book or some therapy or some medication. And it's true. Psychologists, psychiatrists have done groundbreaking work to help all of us to be able to identify and understand anxiety. And medications are very useful. And if you're under medication or you're being treated, you should stick with that because it does work. But what happens is, if we get our level of anxiety high enough, if we get ourselves to that 120 temperature, no matter what we've gotten, it will overwhelm it. And I've talked to therapists who will tell you that you can get yourself so rattled and so anxious that it can start to make it difficult for the therapies and the medication to help you. And that's why they try to teach people to change their behavior and their mindset. And guess what you do? You exchange anxiety for audacity. You start thinking about being bold and doing good and getting out there and making a difference. And the people who I know who've done a great job in their own emotional health are people who replace instead of endure, who replace instead of just persevere, who take and combine the medical and the therapeutic with the spiritual to get maximum homeostasis in their personal lives. And they do really great. And the people who are completely humanistic and abandon God, well, they leave some gaps because there's soul pain and soul difficulty that can't be met by anything other than God and by the audacity that he gives us. Now, let's take a look. What kind of thermometer is really working in your life? We're going to take a look at the anxiety thermometer to pull it all together. You'll notice here that anxiety is dominant. And why is anxiety dominant? Because complexity is dominant. And instead of looking at simplicity, integrity, and audacity, this individual lets anxiety and complexity dominate their life. They're in their head too much. They're thinking and trying to control too much. And as a result, they're driving their temperature up. And notice here, their temp's at about 100, but it's going to go to 120. What we have to do to be healthy is we've got to flip that. And we've got to turn that spiritual thermometer into one where we practice self-control. And as I mentioned already, if you're being treated by a professional, you want to really follow what they say and not break protocol in the things they've taught you, because those things work. But what you want to do is add to it the spirituality part, which is taking the complexity of anxiety and bringing in simplicity. And that means you got to get rid of some things, and you may have to get rid of some thermometers. You may say, right now, because I'm aging, I can't invest as much in this other area. I got to drop 12 degrees of investment there and put in only 6 because I need to invest 18 degrees in just staying in shape and staying healthy in my life. So you're looking for simplicity. And then once you've got the simplicity, you want to stick to it and not break it. You want to have integrity. You want to say, this is what I'm capable of, and I'm going to respect my limits. And when you do that, you're free. You're free to stop worrying about what everybody says, what everybody thinks, what everybody wants out of you, because you got your core. And that gives you incredible audacity. And when you get audacity, you do bold things, you do things that make you dream. You know what? That's how it works. How about that? Now today we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to go to a song, and I think this song is going to define for you a little bit what it means to have audacity, integrity, and simplicity dominate your life instead of anxiety and complexity. It's called Got It In You. And no matter how much you're thinking or feeling right now, you need to know that because of God, you've got it in you to be able to get to that homeostasis, to turn anxiety into audacity. Let's take a listen, and I'll be right back.
Holding back the flood in the skyscraper town. You gave all that sweat and blood, now you think you're gonna drown. You can't tell that you're bigger than the sea that you're sinking in. And you don't know what you got, but you got it at your fingertips. You got it in you. You got it in you. When the lights go out and leave you standing in the dark, no one ever told you this would be so hard. I know you think your fire is burning out, but I still see you shining through. You got it in you. Not everything you hear should sound like the truth, 'cause nobody else's words can define you. Maybe you don't see it, but you're quicker than the world can spin. You should know what you got, 'cause you got it at your fingertips. You got it in you. You got it in you. When the lights go out and leave you standing in the dark, no one ever told you this would be so hard. I know you think your fire is burning out, but I still see you shining through. You got it in you. When the lights go out and leave you standing in the dark, no one ever told you this would be so hard. I know you think your fire is burning out, but I still see you shining through. You got it in you. you got it in you.
Before we go, we're going to give you a little bit of a PayPal Giving Fund commercial to remind us and keep us on track. We're doing a good job with our giving. Here you go.
As we take up our contribution this morning, we want you to know that your generous and consistent giving is not only greatly appreciated, but is providing support for this weekly live stream that is serving people throughout the Bay Area in all 50 states and 110 countries. And as a reminder, on August 30th, we will be taking up our annual special contribution that will, among other things, help us expand our digital footprint and our digital content. Our special contribution goal this year is 7 times our normal weekly contribution.
Thanks for joining us today. If you're new to our Sunday live streams or need a quick reminder, there are 3 ways to give. Number 1, PayPal Giving Fund. There are no credit card fees for PayPal Giving Fund, or by credit card, or by mail, which includes online bill pay. Go to bacc.cc/give for more instructions. See you next week, and thanks for your giving.
So it's been great being together today. We hope you enjoyed the podcast Sunday. You're going to be taking communion yourself, so you take that together, and don't forget to hang out. Fellowship's important. We need friends, we need encouragement. If you're out there, remember, you can go to the BACC Live page and you can be able to become a part of one of these groups even now. And don't forget to download your stress tests and the different links you can follow to be able to do it. It's fun. You won't be discouraged, but it may help you be able to know how to clear out some of this stuff. Anyway, same bat time, same bat channel. And as I like to add, even though the old Batman series didn't do it, same bat place. You guys have a great time. Let's keep the fire, let's keep the faith, and most importantly, let's pray that there'll be rain to douse out these fires and that we can find the vaccine to the coronavirus and everything can be better. You guys go at it, pray, discuss, have a great one. Thanks for listening to Podcast Sunday.